Today I'm going to talk about emotional abuse, compassion, and beauty. And at least for the first couple, I'm going to reference my father, Jon Myers.
Jon Myers has remarkably confronted the challenges of our time. Through his journey, Jon developed the philosophy that our goodness is strength. Together, we will change the world.
If there was ever a story that reflected everything happens for a reason, and I've walked the walk, then this is it. My father, Maury, was in my childhood, we had a good home. And one cannot underestimate the sense for children, a good home with stability, and there wasn't violence in it. And with those accumulation of factors, I say they were good parents, Maury and Sandra, at those times. Incredible regularity. Some too strict, but anyway, basically good. And there was a characteristic even then, which was more buffered, in my father, but like kind of drill in ideas or his own. I don't want to get to the point of obsessiveness, but, his own energy to maybe fears, all the things people have. My grandparents were first generation immigrants. They lived blocks away. A grandfather that fought to be a doctor by like age 22 somehow. Another one who came to the country penniless and ended up a banker and lawyer. So like it was all on the line for those folks. So you understand even on that level. And so my father was like, it was a good home, but he, very drilling in ideas, things that I've sorted out over the years and all this kind of thing as best I can. And then, however, in 1988, what happened is one of my grandfathers I referenced, the one who lived at that previously on Monroe Avenue, died. And with his estate, there was more money than I believe any of us had seen before in our lives. None of us knew. He lived frugally. And so there was an attorney at the time, Rick Bishop, who kind of, orchestrated, and let's just say it wasn't handled up to an old term, Hoyle. It wasn't handled. And so what happened at that point was that the tenor of the family switched from being basically, at least in our immediate family, and before even getting into my brother going off his rocker and all this kind of thing, supported by his wife, the basic tenor, well, I would say benevolence, and the basic tenor of the family was goodness on some level, however imperfect. And there were imperfections, blah, blah, blah. And so, but in 1988, the tenor changed. This attorney Bishop and the way it was handled, and my parents got close to my aunt, my mother's sister, and her husband because they were orchestrating this, these funds as well. So, and somehow, again, with this energy of my brother, which had begun several years before, they began to target me, like for no reason, who had nothing to do with any of it. So the point I'm making, though, is that there was a switch, like a light switch, from benevolent to malevolent, and with me being targeted. And what I want to get at again with my father is that, so where he became part of this dynamic with the Uncle Klein and Jerome Klein and Rick Bishop, that they had to like manage, you could say cover up their actions with these funds, whatever it be. And so he, that initial drilling in just became maniacal over the course of years. They're really drilling me. And again, I had little to do with any of this. I mean, I had my pluses and minuses at the time. I made my errors, blah, 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 leading up to divorce, which they try to, control and all this. But the point I'm making is, it got really emotionally abusive. And my father got really, over the time, someone who was a good father to me, got just drilled in with this obsessive and this antagonism of unprecedented levels. And fueled, I think, by my brother and his wife, which is a whole other layer, just the crazy perspective that, like, sincerely crazy perspective they brought into the situation. So, and I think instilled in my parent, Maury and Sandra, to really go out there in these bizarre perspectives. In any event, what I'm getting at is like this obsessiveness that my father came about. And it's very hard to deal with, when your father, and there's controlling elements, be it social or financial or whatever they be, that your father can, uphold this antagonism towards you for, decades, 30 years. And what I'm getting at is both the abusive side, that really was painful, but all along in my journey, I've always had the ideal of overcoming, of victory, so I could never stop to fully just feel the pain. I had to use it as fuel for my purpose. As an expression, out of your greatest pain comes your greatest purpose. So what I'm getting at now is that as you grow and mature, I've had to put together, because I'm one human being, right? Even though I've spiritually blossomed, that I have this element of my father being a good father in my growing years, and then being this, sheerly antagonistic force in my life over 35 years. And how do you, there's a psychological phrase, cognitive dissonance, where two competing ideas are, one is dealing with. So how do I, I've had to kind of wrestle with all that. And even while that second piece, that antagonism, pushes me to the edge at times, and not in my own spirit, I'm just saying, practically speaking, financially, emotionally, socially, it just, threatens to push you to the edge. And so part of, I guess, the beauty starts to enter in where, adversity lends to your own growth and your own development as a human being, which brings me to the compassion that, upholding A and B, the good parenting and then the sheer antagonism, is like you start to see this is as we all, all are in different ways, this is an imperfect person who has a good idea, I believe, somewhere in there that this is what's right for him and for this family. But, remember the old basketball coach, Bobby Knight, who would throw chairs and ended up even choking his players, to instill discipline, but even beyond that, this has gone way too far, where there may be a good idea, but the actuation of it is so brutal and so minimalist and so narrow, so hurtful on an objective basis. Heath once threw the word objectivity out to me. So, he's just being objective. Well, I'm just being objective. It just would be destructive to any human being, that level of control and intrusion, invasion, as I use the word. And even the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court used the word invasion related to emotional distress into my life. So what I'm getting at is that, in any situation like this, so the terms fairness and forgiveness arise, not even, certainly not vengeance, and certainly maybe not even justice, although justice would be appropriate. But how do you get, how do I morally resolve the issue of those questions of, good parents, but, invasive. So you grow and you develop a compassion. You say, look, it's his limitations. And so, he's still doing good things. He still believes he's doing more good things. And he could do great things if he let go of the negative and just did the good things he's doing. But for the moment, I want to have compassion that, I don't know, some compassion that we have limitations, on a day that we're Easter, where, Jesus is quoted, forgive them, they know what they know, not what they do. It doesn't obscure, fairness or justice, accountability, whatever it be. But it does say, it's his own mind has brought him to that place. And that's what that's the compassion I can see. And that gets me to the point of beauty, is that that's what adversity can do to you. I mean, would I have ever had this perspective I had if all this didn't happen to me? Would a butterfly become a butterfly if it hadn't been a caterpillar? Would we build buildings if we didn't lay bricks down one at a time through great pain and turmoil and toil sometimes? So the more, when you don't give up, and this is why I urge people to look at our training, coaching, and mediation, go to the website, is that when you don't give up, and here's the other piece that I always say to people is, you have to act appropriately. You can't be angry, and that's where I talk about the third way. You have to be assertive, and you have to act appropriately. So if I'd gotten overly angry at any point, I would have blown it. But when you're dealing with a situation that's unfolded over 28, 35 years, the beauty is that you can grow and change as a person. And this is the part, a lot of people don't understand as of yet, that you can grow and change irrespective of the circumstances. That's why I'm saying, I'm glad I ended up in this place, because it was a quote I saw today, that circumstances don't matter. So whatever, I brought something to the Supreme Court, I'll hear about tomorrow, it'd be great to win, if okay, I don't. But, it almost doesn't matter, because circumstances don't matter. What matters, what's in my control, is my emotional, my spiritual development, to where, I became, I believe I'm right on that issue, that I became a much different person in this process, that it went from using maybe 8% of my potential to much more in the 60, 70, and I think genius ranges get when you start using 80, 70, 80, 60, 80% of your potential, that's what genius is. I mean, it's something we all have. And the other beauty of this situation is I would have never have stayed with it this long if the situation didn't elongate over 28 or 35 years. You see what I'm saying? The pain of that gave me the opportunity, challenge into opportunity, as I love to talk about. The pain of that situation gave me, because I wouldn't give up on the things I believed right, it gave me the opportunity to keep growing and growing and growing, reaching more and more of my potential. I do recall when I first met my late ex-wife, maybe she rests in peace on this Easter day, that she introduced a game called Pente, where the key concept was the move called a potential. So, and maybe that's what life's about, is the potential, is that, what this situation has brought to me is to move me into much higher levels of my potential, shall we say. And that's where I look to train and, mediate and coach other people, organizations, families, and individuals to reach your potential, more and more of your potential. Because I think at a certain point, maybe greatness is around 50% of your potential. Maybe genius is around 70%. I don't know what the figures, but you get the idea that I'm talking about. Because I think a lot of society right now, and no disrespect, I love everybody, is operating at, certainly in our institutions, which I work on encouraging and changing, a lot of society is operating at 8% or 10% of our potential. We can do a lot better. And that's what this is about. And that's what my life and work's about, is finding that beauty within that potential and appropriately developing it. And it can take days, years, and in my instance, for all of us, decades. Will we ever get to 100%? No. So that's the beauty too, that you can always continue to work. You can not always, but you can mostly continue to work and grow and gain. And that's the beauty, that would not have, to become, to use a word my son had used, to quote in an email or something, the opposite, to become almost the opposite of what I was, or how people perceived me 28 years ago, to grow, to blossom like that butterfly, and to help others. So go to the website, learn about our coaching, training, and mediation. You can reach more and more of your potential. And the beauty of potential, is goodness is strength. I'm going to throw out a new logo that I did. The beauty of potential is that it's yours, and it's based on goodness, and it's based on beauty. See, so what you have to do is develop that perseverance and that strength to continue and believe in your beauty and believe in your goodness when a lot of the world is raining on you to not accept that. So to develop what's good about you towards greatness. So peace and love.